Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast, your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Season 3, Episode 6. I had so much to talk about last week that I forgot to do a segment on the cleanse that I am, as of today, one day away from completing. So why not give it a nice little wrap-up? Once again, I was wrong, and I was wrong, and I was wrong. My NCAA Tournament picks. TikTok. Is banning TikTok somehow going to make anything better in the world of social media? Are we going to be somehow better protected if TikTok is no longer a part of the social media landscape? Thank you all for listening. I do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, thumbs up, distribute the podcast far and wide. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is on Patreon. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting.
Act 1, yes. I'm still on my cleanse.
There were so many other things that I wanted to talk about last week that I forgot to do my quote-unquote weekly segment on my cleanse. So I guess it's not going to be weekly. And because the cleanse is only 3 weeks, I say only now that I'm 2 weeks into it. Because the cleanse is only 2 weeks, I'm not going to have a weekly segment. I'm going to talk about where I'm at in this process right now, and I'll have next week a follow-up. I guess follow-up's the wrong thing to say. I'll have a conclusion as to how I feel about the cleanse. But what I do want to do, because it's part of the cleanse, is talk about reintroduction of food. I'll get to that at the end. So I'm in the middle of this cleanse. I've lost 11 pounds. I'm not a big guy. I'm not someone that when I present to you, I present as if I had 11 pounds to lose at any time in my life. Yet I've lost 11 pounds. I don't feel any weaker. I'm not suffering from any kind of brain fog. I have an appetite, yes. I do go through these hunger pangs, but I'm eating a lot of the food that's recommended that you eat to snack. And it's healthy, yes. A lot of nuts, a lot of seeds, avocado. You can't go wrong with avocado. Several of the people who've seen me have noted that my face looks more svelte. It doesn't look, and I hate to use this word because I never thought my face was bloated. I don't believe that it was. But it doesn't look as rounded. It looks more defined. The point being, I had a pretty good diet. I don't think that I had a poor diet. I don't think that I was eating poorly. I would drink on occasion, and as I've attested to in this podcast numerous times, I really couldn't drink that much, and to the extent that I ever did drink, I didn't feel really great about it after I had COVID. So I don't have a lot of alcohol bloat. I worked out regularly. When you change your diet and you actually start to go through this cleanse, you begin to realize how many quote-unquote, I've now used that little term of art twice, and I just noticed it, but I'm not going to edit this out. You don't, in your diet, have these quote-unquote bad foods. There are foods that may not be necessarily unhealthy. You just don't react well to them. And there is something in my diet, maybe more than one something, maybe there's some things in my diet that was causing me probably the most infamous problem in the American diet today, and it's inflammation. There are a bunch of foods out there, regardless. I'm not going to get into whether or not they're processed. I'm not going to get into whether or not they've got some sort of glyphosate on them. They've got some sort of pesticide or herbicide that they've been processed in a facility that has soy or has nuts. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because it's all unique to us. There are things that are going to make us feel good when we eat them, and there are things that are going to make us feel bad when we eat them. And the sourcing, sure, I'm not going to argue, I'm not going to maintain, I'm not going to try to advocate that the sourcing doesn't have a part to play in this. But if you get to a point in your life where you can no longer eat dairy, it may not matter what kind of dairy you eat, your body just doesn't react to dairy anymore. If you get to a point where you just can't eat corn, it doesn't matter how the corn was sourced. you may not react well to corn. If you just can't eat gluten anymore, it may not matter how it was sourced. You just can't eat gluten. And I name those three because I believe that those are three of the big adjutants, three of the big food sources that actually cause people a ton of inflammation, and they just don't realize it. I also bring those three up: dairy, corn, gluten, because they are three of the most delicious food groups. Me loves me some cheese. I love all kinds of cheese. I love the cheap, individually wrapped American cheese slice singles that can last in your refrigerator for 2.5 years and never, ever have an ounce of mold on them. I love expensive cheeses, these Goudas, these Havrades that you get with goat's milk, and you get them from Hungary or you get them from Germany, and they're just delicious. I love all kinds of dairy. Me loves me some Mexican food. Sophisticated Mexican food, barrio Mexican food, it really doesn't matter. Sophisticated Mexican food less so, but Mexican food generally has a lot of corn in it. And if you look at most food products today, they practically all have corn in them. And finally, gluten. Who doesn't love some sort of gluten? Gluten is so synonymous to the American diet. It's hard to sit there and start naming things that I like that have gluten in them. I'd have to be more diligent in naming things that I don't like, or things that I'm consciously aware of that I know don't have gluten in them. And there are very few things that I can actually think of off the top of my head. It may not be overt. It may be very subtle. But these things, these dairy products, these corn products, these gluten products, they may be causing us inflammation. And that inflammation can get so bad, as I believe it did in me, that you start to have this bloating, this irritation within your body, and it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You just have a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and it starts to compound on itself. And it's compounding because you're having these combinations of these inflammatory foods in your system. It's like having a rug burn over and over and over again. Part of this cleanse is not just the cleanse piece. You go through the cleanse for 3 weeks, and you're basically cleaning yourself out, of course. You are fasting because you're not eating a ton of food. You're having a shake in the morning. You're having a meal for lunch, which is, again, a pre-approved meal. So you're not having the opportunity to eat whatever you want. And then you have a shake for dinner. So you are in a state of fasting for 3 weeks. Then you're supposed to reintroduce, week by week, different foods. So the first week, I will no doubt go to dairy because I love me some dairy. To the extent that it is possible, I will try to avoid corn and gluten and perhaps other things, maybe red meat. Yes, red meat is actually prohibited on this diet. You can eat a lot of what you'd call game meats, such as venison and bison and all of your pheasants. You're not supposed to eat beef or steak. And that's not easy for me. So I'm going to have to incorporate beef back in my diet. But the first week will very likely be dairy. So 3 weeks in this semi-fasting state, cleansing yourself with these shakes, with these vitamins, and then reintroducing all of these foods to see what is it that actually causes you the inflammation. Is this some sort of newfangled strategy? Is this some kind of progressive strategy? No. I've read about this time and time again. It's not anything that any one of us can do on our own. What's interesting about the way I'm doing it is that it basically comes in a package, and that's what I needed. I wasn't going to lay out the diet by myself. I wasn't going to just do the shakes by myself. I actually spent the money, which means now that I'm committed, I've got my monetary interest in this, and it's all laid out for me. After having lost 11 pounds, and just to give you a frame of reference, that's about 164, 165 down to, the 144, 154, 155 range. not feeling weaker, not feeling like I have a brain fog, not being but so hungry for food every moment of the day. There's something to this process. There's something to the fasting, the vitamin intake, the cleaning out, and the removal of different food sources that are very likely inflammatory. So if you are like me, you're motivated, and you're like me, you're not motivated enough to go out and prepare your own diet for 3 weeks and to source shakes and vitamins and then to follow a rigid plan, I think that the Cleanse 21 system is perfect for you, dear listener.
Act 2 once again. I was wrong. NCAA Tournament picks.
I record these segments throughout the course of the week. Usually edit them Friday night, Saturday morning, publish on Saturday. I had an entire segment that was, hey, I got all these picks wrong, and it was recorded on Wednesday night. Went back and listened to it on Friday night. It is now Saturday. I am re-recording it because I had a segment about how wrong I was in my NCAA picks, and then I made additional predictions, and all of those predictions were wrong. I believe the only thing that I got close to being right about was that the Midwest region was a crapshoot. That bracket had 3 or 4 teams that could come out of it besides Houston. Well, it looks like it'll be either Miami or Texas. In the East region, the Charlie Brown and me got duped again by the University of Tennessee Volunteers. I went to kick that football, and Rick Barnes and company yanked it out from under me right when I was about to place foot on leather. Same song, different verse. It is somewhat remarkable how year after year Rick Barnes can take a team to the NCAA tournament, and they don't just lose. They lose in these excruciating fashions. Not being able to score a point, throwing the ball at the basket for minutes on end, allowing a team that you were much bigger and stronger than to go on a 20-2 run. Same song, different verse. Based on who is left, who will win the NCAA tournament? I do not know. How the hell should I know? I have no idea. Every one of the picks that I made was wrong, so flip a coin.
Act 3 banning TikTok changes nothing.
My entree into social media was via this podcast, and my sole purpose in signing up for any of these sites was to promote this podcast. I wasn't looking to reconnect with anybody. I wasn't looking to create some funny clips that I could throw onto social media, which in a sense is one of the reasons why this podcast likely hasn't taken off, is I'm too focused on content and not enough on the promotion. Some videos of me actually doing some of these segments with a CapCut feature or something like that probably would do this podcast some good. Anyway, not on the social medias, and gradually getting on Twitter and then Facebook, deleting Facebook, getting back on Facebook, Instagram, even flirted with Reddit. The one that I did not ever entertain signing up for was TikTok. TikTok is and always has been a Chinese spyware app, right? That's exactly how it was postured by the other social media companies, by the legacy media in this country, by a number of different security analysts, by pundits. Everyone was saying that TikTok is nothing but a Chinese spyware app, and it's going to get in and look around your entire phone, all of the other apps, all of the photos, all of the metadata. Why would you let that worm dig in to your most personal, your most private inner thoughts? Worked on me. Okay, TikTok is out. Of course, over the 36, 48 months since TikTok was dropped, it is now the #1 social media app. And did that put me behind on keeping up to date with what the kids thought was cool? Yes. What I have learned is it isn't just the kids. The kids drug their parents onto that app, and their grandparents. There are a lot of different types of people, a lot of different types of socioeconomic groups, of different levels of sophistication, there are a lot of people on the TikTok. You now have college campuses, you have a number of public entities banning TikTok on their Wi-Fi under the guise that because TikTok is a spyware app, a Chinese spyware app, that a public Wi-Fi router would be susceptible to hacking by allowing TikTok to be broadcast on its network. There have been overtures to the federal government since Donald Trump first opened his mouth and said that he might actually ban TikTok. There have been overtures to the federal government. Hey, we need to ban TikTok in the United States. We can't allow all of this data to be collected by the Chinese. That fervor has turned into such a roar that you've actually got the President of the United States, the White House administration, leaking these overtures that they are going to demand that all Chinese-based companies divest their interest in the U.S. entity that is TikTok, so that the U.S. entity will be a standalone and it won't have any direct ties to the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, mainland China, any of the servers, any of the databases in China. This fervor has been around for years, and really, I had not seen any counter argument to let's ban TikTok, the Chinese spyware app. Hadn't seen any counterpoint, any alternative view as to why this TikTok ban was in fact bullshit. Within the last week, I finally got the counter argument, the counterpoint, the alternative view as to why the U.S. government and why state governments are looking to ban TikTok. TikTok's the number one social media app. I actually did a segment on this podcast last year about Instagram changing its format and the way it was laid out and the way that you uploaded videos. I did a segment on that, and Instagram had done this nonsensical change, this clumsy change, this visually poor change, a programming and format change to try to compete with TikTok. Here I am, some old guy trying to upload content onto this new platform that Instagram rolled out just to try to promote this podcast, and it was ugly and it was awkward. My recollection of my thought now, my opinion of it, was that I was just going to delete it. And I think if I go back and I listen to that segment, I probably said as much. If it continued to be that difficult to navigate, I would just delete it. As it turned out, I was part of a test of this new format to see how users would react to it, and it got such unfavorable reactions that Instagram scrapped the entire project. It just shows the lengths that these social media giants have gone to try to compete with TikTok to regain the number one spot. The old axiom is, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Well, let's take a twist on that, because there is another way that you can beat them instead of joining them. You can get them banned. And from a cacophony of voices, there are people who are social media influencers, some of them in the alternative media, independent media. They're starting to come out and defend TikTok, not because it isn't a Chinese spyware app. It most certainly is. But to qualify it as a Chinese spyware app is to mask the true nature of all social media apps. They are all spyware apps. They are all data harvesters. Not one of them is innocent. In this den of thieves, TikTok stands out because it is the biggest thief. Yet, it is surrounded by other thieves that want to take that number one spot, that want to knock off the king of the hill, and they are doing nothing different. There's no nobility in Facebook, in Google, trying to knock off TikTok because it's a spyware app. There's no nobility, there's no dignity, there's no virtue. Google wants to have the number one spot.
Facebook wants to have the number one spot. They can't knock off TikTok. They're just trying to get it banned. Why? So that they can have more of the market share, more opportunity to harvest our data, to use it for their own purposes, or to sell it. This situation does not spark a nativist instinct in me, a xenophobic instinct in me. I don't care that there's a Chinese spyware app and that the Chinese may be data harvesting when there are multiple US-based spyware apps that are doing what? Data harvesting. This is just like any other politicized issue where all sides are culpable and yet they point fingers at one another when it's convenient, demanding that we the people, we the consumers in this case, choose sides. The issue is data harvesting. The issue is whether or not our data is ours, that we have any right to keep it, to have it be private, and at our election, to monetize it. That is the future. The future is the consumer being able to monetize their own data instead of allowing it to be monetized by these social media giants. Maybe TikTok gets banned. Maybe the Chinese part of the ownership group gets divested. Maybe. It changes nothing. Whatever happens to TikTok, it changes nothing about the landscape going forward. The future is the people reclaiming their right to their own data, their privacy around their own data, the monetization of their own data. And it will happen. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be in 10 years. If you had asked me 10 years ago if NCAA athletes would be able to go out and by way of their likeness rights obtain millions and millions of dollars in order to play at any college, I would have said, you're crazy. And so would have you, dear listener. You would not have thought there would be a landscape where a college athlete could go to school A versus school B by accepting $1 million and have that be completely legitimate and above board, and the legal rationale for it be, well, they're getting paid for their likeness rights. Guess what? It's not just college athletes. It's just not pro athletes. It's you and me, dear listener. Our likeness rights by way of our data, our personalized data, that has a monetary value as well. And that's our property. It's for us to monetize. This TikTok issue is the canary in the coal mine when it comes to data harvesting. And we are, as a collective, as a people, going to take the power back. We are going to be able to claim privacy and dominion over the property that is our data, and we are going to sell it. I have no doubt in my mind. It will be sold. It's just who is going to make the money off of the sale. This is Why Don't Vote, a podcast.